Now, this episode was hell to write. I might have mentioned it in a couple of the other things, commentaries, that the other episode wrote itself. Unlike 4 and 8, this one took forever to write, and it took forever to get the angle I was going to use on it, because it's sort of like, it is the first of the second season of Last Exile, and it totally gets away from everything that it's been up to this point. Up until this point, it's pretty much the characters in the Sylvana, and they're doing their thing and whatever. The second half of it is much more about sort of Prester, the entire world, and sort of not only serves to sort of explain why the characters have been doing what they've been doing, but, sets the whole thing up in the bigger picture. Arguably, it should have been done the other way around, but it actually does work quite nicely that way once you've seen it through the entire way, and you then realize why it's done. But, there were so many more things I had to do in it. It was just brutal. Anyway, and this scene with She Who Must Be Obeyed and me was just the start of it, because I'd been, holding off introducing Delphine at all. This scene is actually taken from a couple episodes earlier. Because I just didn't know what the guild was going to do, and I had this idea that they definitely wanted to be, because it is the force that runs Prester. So, obviously, if I'm writing it, and I've made myself explicitly writing it, then I must have something to do with the guild. So, I think of it now as this is the episode where the Unwardle Avatar sort of got fed up with everything else, fed up with Alex and his crap, and finally said, look, if I'm going to keep doing this, I'm going to get help. I'll go to the guild. That's what they do, right? They'll help me. And of course it totally backfires and goes in my face, but yeah. But then trying to continue that on throughout the rest of this episode, changing things in that direction, proved to be incredibly challenging at a lot of times. And, well, I do, for the most part, like the way it came out in the end. It was pulling teeth to get it there. Anyway, luckily, in the end, it was actually the fact that it was taking so bloody long to do it that finally got me out of it. I'm like, well, why don't I just make a joke about that? There, good, that's that scene taken care of. And I sort of get lazy and do it a couple of times, but I didn't have the idea for that mustached guy's character that he was going to be as big as he ended up being in the next episode, so he was, this moment, still just a sort of placeholder mook, generally being a shit to Vincent, because being a shit to Vincent's always hilarious. I don't know why. Maybe it's because I fail epically at a Steve Bloom impression. That is, by the way, if you couldn't tell, and probably most people can't, what I was attempting to do with his voice. Sure, he sounds like Spike Spiegel. That's exactly what he sounds like. I don't know what the hell you're talking about. It's Steve Bloom here. Anyway. Of course, sounds almost exactly like my regular voice. But here we get to the bits where it's good again. Because once I had everything else set, this scene was great and easy to write. Especially the package line and the desk line. After great Team 4-star episode involving King Yama, whoever the hell it is. Mahogany Guy! Yeah. Clearly what I was going for there. And that sort of led inexorably to the death of the lame goat. And if I'm gonna have the lame goat going on, I might as well have them discussing some of my more lame things that I insist on doing all the time. Just sort of explicitly discussing the fact that, yeah, the horse joke is a little bit old, but you know what? If it was old earlier, it's still old now, and I'm still doing it. So I'll bugger him. And Dio, I love Dio's facial expressions in this scene. This was, what he says, the line about to take you 2.5 months to come up with that. Yeah, it did. This was the last scene that got written, because I in fact needed the Alex scene that comes after in order to know what this was setting up. So, and then I could finally do. Once I finally had that, it wasn't all that hard to write, but and the Alex scene was a bugger too. His facial expressions are just they're great. I used them for saying fart jokes in the musical for exactly the same reason.
Alex, what's the meaning of this?
And then the scene with Alex now. This was so hard to do because over the series, Exile has changed from being the place where anime dubs go to die to being the nexus of narrativium emitting badassery. I didn't have all the lame dynamics and physics and invented shit totally hammered out in my head yet when I'd written this scene, so I was in fact trying to make it set up an Exile that was the burial place of anime dubs that had distribution companies that went under. And that proved totally impossible to do without it just becoming a 5-minute long bout of total exposition that was unfunny and boring. Boring to do, boring to watch, but not to mention the fact that scrolling backgrounds. So instead, I just went with, basic mudslinging between the animosity between Klaus and Alex, which, isn't ever there, but totally should have been. Klaus is a little whiny shit. And Alex is the biggest badass ever. But, possibly not the best person to call someone out on being emo. So, now, the Terry Pratchett line is from Guards Guards, and it's dragon, it's a metaphor of human existence in it. Yes, and to make it even worse, it's also a bloody great hot flying thing. Brilliant book. Go read Terry Pratchett. If you have not read Terry Pratchett, it will hopefully increase your appreciation of the English language and make it very obvious where I've ripped stuff off. Yep. The killing of the lame goat. That was another pivotal scene. Once I had that, things started to get moving on the writing front again. And if you remember the music this is from in Final Fantasy VIII, well, you know where this is from. I make no excuses for the game, but seriously, there's a lot of similarities between that game and this show. And I like the show, so that sort of bleeds over into the game a little bit, except for the magic drawing. Yes, that's dumb. And if you can't understand Klaus here, he's saying, holy crap, that's her tongue in my mouth. And see you next time.